All right, so now for the init particles. So when we are instantiating the particles, what we need to do is first, I don't know if you remember, but we had a particles variable that we declared right at the top. If we go to the top, particles, it's there. We are going to be setting this up. So every time this function is called, we are going to create or set this variable particles to an empty array. Next, we are going to declare or set the particle number value to 100. Now you could set this to whatever you want. I'm going to set it to 100. If you wanted, you could even create a user interface and then call this function from a button or a form submission or something like that and pass parameters into this function, but I'm just setting it here. So 100. Next one is the particle radius. I'm going to set it to an object that has a min value and a max value. So the min value, I'm just going to set it to 30, and the maximum is going to be 80. And I'm just going to be repeating this type of process for the rest. Actually, let me copy this here. Yeah, I'm going to be repeating this process for all of the other details for the particles. So the particle speed, it's going to be an object again with min and max values, but very different variables. It's going to be 0.5 to a max of 1. And the last one is the particle life. And that's going to be set to, again, an object. And the particle life, if we look here, these particles are slowly fading. So watch this one follow it. It's slowly fading away. So the alpha value is slowly changing. And that's what I consider, or what I'm calling, the life. And so that's what it's saying, that this is going to be the min and there's the max for it. And this is either the rate of change, like how long it's going to be alive, hence the life. It only has a life of 0.1 to 0.3. And again, you could change that. So that's where we're starting. Last thing that we need to do is for the colors. We need to establish what the colors are going to be when they start, because every time the page is refreshed, it's a different color. So I'm going to use my random function, and I'm going to say that the minimum value is 0, which would be a hue of red, and the maximum is 360, which is a hue of red. And so I'm doing that to get me my color. So basically, if I go here and I look here, so you see the color, when we refresh it, every time one color is chosen from that start color. And that color is used for all of these as the starting point. And then it slowly progresses and changes. So you'll see them slowly change colors and cycle through that color wheel for the hue of the particle. Alright, and we go back here, and now we are going to be creating a for loop that loops through the number of particles. So loops as many times as the number of particles, 100, and will create a particle object. So there's a lot of values that we want to pass into the particle object. Basically, at the end, we are going to go and set particles. Right, so we take this array that we have here, particles, and we're going to go dot push. And what are we adding? What are we adding to the end of the array? We are adding a new particle object with all of this stuff passed in. So we have, if we look here, what are the values? An x, a y, an r, dx, dy, l, and h. Let's actually just take these, and then we could fill them in once we set those variables. So that's what it needs to have. Right? Well, let's determine those values. So the first one we are going to do is we're going to say let the radius equal something. And then we are going to have this be, instead of r, it's going to be radius. And this is what I was referring to earlier, that we're clearly declaring the variable names. We're not being misleading or shorthanding it where there's room for assumptions. It's very clear, radius. So that's the particle radius that we're passing in. The next one is I'm going to say let x. I'm not going to do something different because that's the x coordinate. Right? Then we have let y, and that's going to equal some value. And we have let dx. I'm not going to change that. Let dy. I'm not going to change that. And I'll call this life, just so that it's clear. And I will change this here to life. And finally, the last one is let hue equal great. All right, so here's where I'm going to do something to simplify this. So there's a lot of values here. How am I determining it? This is where the random function that I made, so my random function is going to be used a lot. So I'm going to go here and say the hue. Let's start off simple. So I have a start color value, which has been determined. And I want all the colors to be pretty close. There's going to be some variation, but I want them to be pretty close. So let's say that the starting hue is going to equal start color plus, let's say, I. Right, so I is going to change. So there's going to be a range from the first particle to the last particle made, which is the 100th particle. It's going to have an I value. The first particle is going to be start color plus 0. The last particle is going to have a color of start color plus 99. All right, and there we go. So we have hue there. That one's easy. Next one, life. The life is going to be a random value between what I wrote earlier. So the particle life. So particle life dot min and the particle life dot max. What did I mess up on? Unexpected token. Yeah, that's fine. I know it's unexpected. The dy is going to be pretty straightforward. So the speed that I'm really thinking about is the y speed. I haven't stated it here, but it's fine. So the random speed here is going to be the particle speed dot min and then particle speed dot max. So we're making progress slowly. The dx to start, I'm just going to put it at 0. I will adjust that later, but for right now, it could be 0 and then it just oscillates at a set speed for all of them. It's not that big of a deal. The y is going to be, this one's a bit interesting. So the x and the y, for now, I'm just going to set them at 0, 0. All right, and the radius, that one's not that hard. I'll do that one as well. The reason why I'm leaving out the x and the y is because we need to set up the resize and go through the CTX and the canvas width and height to give context to how the x and y values are going to work. So the radius is going to equal a random value between particle radius dot min and particle radius dot max. So you can see how this is really making sense, right? The radius, choose a random value for this particle between this range. The y velocity or the y rate of change in position, choose a random value between this range. Choose a random value between this range. Right? It becomes really nice. The start color, I could do the same thing as well. I'm not going to because I want them to all start at a pretty close color. But this personal tool, this helper function, is really useful. All right, so there you go. We started it off. Oh, I did miss something here. There you go. So we started off. And now we are going to go and work on the resize function next. And then we'll come back to the initParticles. All right, so it's all kind of just hopping around, building things slowly, and making sure that it's all making sense as we're going through this. This is the key, for me at least, when I try to take on a project or try to break down someone's code, is make it logical. If you can't explain it in simple terms to yourself, then there's a problem or you're not really understanding something. So, all right, next is the resize function.